They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family. But nothing prepared me for the sound of my sister's voice when she shattered my life in front of 50 people holding plastic cups and paper plates. We were halfway through potato salad and sweet tea on a hot Sunday in June, my dad flipping ribs by the grill, and my mom arranging deviled eggs like this was some Southern Living cover shoot. I was standing under the old oak tree that shaded the patio, watching the laughter, the lazy breeze rustling the napkins, David chatting with Uncle Ronnie about mortgage rates. For a few stolen seconds, everything felt fine. Then Amanda tapped her fork against her glass. The clink rang out like a pistol shot. Everyone turned. She looked radiant. Glowing, really. Her sundress was floral, fitted just enough, and her hand hovered over her belly like some porcelain Madonna. And then she smiled. That sugar-sweet, camera-ready smile. "I have something to share," she said, voice soft and trembling like she might cry. "I wasn't sure when to say this, but I'm pregnant." Cheers erupted before she even finished the word. My mother gasped and dropped her spoon into the coleslaw. My aunt clapped her hands and practically squealed. "Oh my gosh, Amanda! You're glowing, sweetheart." David didn't say a word, and something in that silence twisted in my gut. Amanda's eyes found mine. She held them, just long enough to be cruel, and then she added, in the same breathless tone, "It's David's." The world split open. At first there was just stillness, like someone pressed pause, and then came the noise. Forks clattered. Someone let out a muffled, "What?" My cousin dropped her drink. My father stepped back from the grill, smoke curling around him like fog. "David?" Mom said, her voice rising into a panic I've never heard from her. "David, is that true?" He didn't answer, not with words, just rubbed a hand over his mouth and looked down at the deck, at the ketchup stain near his shoe. Like he was trying to disappear. That was all it took. The judgment swept in like wildfire. Aunt Rochelle muttered something about how I'd always been so buttoned up. My uncle shook his head, like this was tragic but inevitable. And my mother, my own mother, had the audacity to whisper, "Well, Elizabeth never really liked to talk about children. No one looked at me. Not really. Not the way you look at someone human. They looked at Amanda like she was this brave, tragic angel, and they looked at me like I was the cold, barren villain who pushed her husband away. Can you imagine?" I stood there, hands frozen at my sides, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and throat. Not one person, not one, asked if it was true. Not one gave me the decency of disbelief. My sister had just declared war, smiling like a debutante, and I was the casualty no one bothered to mourn. I locked eyes with David, hoping, foolishly, that he'd step forward, say something, anything. Deny it, explain it, admit it. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore, but he didn't move. Just stood there, head down, shame dripping from every pore like sweat. My mother walked over to Amanda, arms open. She embraced her like some triumphant survivor, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Amanda sniffled theatrically. Her hands cradled her stomach like a prop. She leaned into Mom, the perfect picture of fragility. And I walked. Not ran, not stormed. Just walked. Past the grill, past the cooler of lemonade, past the folding chairs and confused cousins. No one followed me. No one stopped me. That's when I knew. I wasn't just being betrayed. I was being erased. I drove home in silence. Not even the radio dared interrupt my thoughts. The house greeted me like a tomb, all clean lines and quiet corners. I stepped out of my heels, set my purse down, and stared at the photo of David and me from our trip to Charleston, smiling, happy. So stupidly unaware. And then, slowly, I sat on the edge of the couch, legs trembling, hands limp in my lap. It wasn't the betrayal that undid me. It was the performance. The way Amanda weaponized vulnerability. The way everyone applauded her for it. The way my silence made me complicit in a narrative I didn't write. But I wasn't going to stay silent for long. They could write their little story. I was going to edit the ending. After the barbecue, I stopped answering calls. No explanations. No confrontations. Just stillness. I let the world turn without me. Let Amanda shine in her borrowed spotlight. Let David stew in whatever cocktail of guilt and weakness he'd chosen over a 10-year marriage. I didn't lash out. I didn't beg. I didn't even cry. Not in front of anyone. And that somehow made me the villain. Because when a woman doesn't perform heartbreak the way people expect, mascara-streaked cheeks, desperate voicemails, wild accusations, they don't see strength. They see coldness, so let them. I didn't waste time explaining myself to people who had already chosen their roles in Amanda's little play. Instead, I slipped out of the scene entirely. I went back to the one place no one could touch me: work. My office overlooked the marina, steel, glass, and slate gray calm. I had designed every inch of it, from the Art Deco sconces to the white orchid near the window. It was my sanctuary. And now it became my war room. At Chesapeake Bay Living, I wasn't Elizabeth, the betrayed wife. I was the woman who closed 3 waterfront deals in a month, who negotiated zoning like it was chess, who remembered birthdays and floor plans, and whose latte never went cold because she didn't have time to drink it slowly. Clients still smiled. Staff still said, "Good morning, Elizabeth," with a certain reverence. Here, I wasn't unraveling. I was rebuilding. But that doesn't mean I wasn't hurting. There were moments, quiet, cruel ones, where the silence in my home felt unbearable. The absence of David's cologne in the closet. The way my phone lit up with family group messages I no longer opened. The charity board emails addressed to Amanda and David. Yes, she was already stepping into my place. Yes, people were letting her. And still, I said nothing. That's what they never understood about me. I don't scream. I don't throw things. I wait. Because you don't demolish a lie by shouting louder. You demolish it by watching, listening, gathering every thread until the entire web collapses under its own weight. So I started collecting. Not revenge, truth. While Amanda paraded around baby boutiques and posted cryptic bump updates on social media, I followed her digital trail. Screenshots, public appearances, comments, timestamps. I noticed things other people didn't, the inconsistencies, the copy-paste captions, the way she shifted her due date, ever so slightly when she thought no one was paying attention. And all the while I stayed silent. People say revenge is sweet. They're wrong. It's bitter, metallic, cold in the mouth. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wanted precision. If Amanda wanted to play the role of beloved victim, she could have the stage. But she forgot one thing. I build, I develop, I structure. And I was about to restructure the narrative, piece by elegant piece. They thought my silence meant surrender. It didn't. It meant strategy. I started noticing it in flickers, like a shadow trailing just behind me. The way Amanda began showing up at family functions wearing my old silk blouses. Gifts from David, ironically. The exact shade of lipstick I favored. Hosting brunches that mimicked the ones I used to plan down to the lemon tarts and signature place cards. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then came the charity gala. The Chesapeake Women's Wellness Brunch had been my brainchild for 5 years. I'd started it quietly as a way to bring women in business together over something more nourishing than mimosas. Every detail had been mine, from the floral arrangements to the jazz trio by the bay window. This year, Amanda hosted it, in my name, with my guest list. And as if that weren't enough, she walked into the venue, heels clicking, hand on stomach, that same saccharine smile, and waved like a queen returning from exile. Photos hit social media within the hour. Amanda smiling beside my mother. Amanda posing under the banner I'd had custom printed the year before. Amanda honoring Elizabeth's legacy by continuing her beautiful work. I watched from my phone, curled up in bed with my laptop and a cup of chamomile. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched. And then I opened a new folder on my desktop, Amanda Public Behavior, because if she wanted to take over my life so badly, she could have it. I was documenting every inch of the performance. Every brunch, every sponsored post, every faintly patronizing, "Elizabeth has always been so strong" interview quote. The more she stepped into my image, the more the cracks began to show. She was trying too hard. Overselling every bump pic, over-explaining every symptom, and not one of my cousins, who now gushed over her like she was some spiritual fertility goddess, seemed to notice that her body never changed. No swelling, no real fatigue, no consistent timeline. I knew what a pregnancy looked like. Even if I'd never had one of my own, I'd watched friends go through it. I'd been there with tissues and saltines and sobbing at commercials. And this was cosplay. But Amanda was a method actress, and the world was still buying front row seats, so I kept watching, waiting. She loved being seen, and I used that. Every tagged post, every accidental paparazzi moment outside her yoga studio. I even started attending events again, not for the show, but for the footage. Always cordial, always quiet. But I made sure to be there, a few feet away, phone discreetly angled. Once, I caught her at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a local children's library, accepting a plaque in my name, while sipping sparkling cider with a smirk. Someone asked how far along she was. She stammered, corrected herself, then doubled down on the earlier due date. I clipped that moment. Amanda was slipping, and I was capturing every drop. Because here's what no one tells you about truth. It doesn't need to shout. It just needs to wait for lies to trip over themselves. And Amanda? She was practically sprinting. It was a Thursday afternoon when the dam finally sprung its first leak. A soft ping from my phone broke the silence of my office, the kind of silence only glass and order can offer. I glanced at the screen, expecting a client update or board memo. Instead, it was a text from Marissa, a former colleague turned startup CEO with an insatiable curiosity for chaos. "Didn't your sister say she was 18 weeks? Just saw her post. She's announcing a second trimester home birth plan already? Isn't that early?" I didn't answer, just stared at the message, then opened Amanda's latest post. There she was, glowing as usual. Her caption read like a badly ghostwritten memoir. "Feeling so aligned in my journey. My home birth midwife has been so supportive. I'm entering my final trimester with clarity and trust." Final trimester? I checked the date, counted back. Then again. Nope. The math didn't work. It was a small thing, easily overlooked by people too dazzled to keep track. But not me. I tapped the screen, heart slow and steady, and saved the post. Then I reached out to Vanessa. Vanessa had once worked in my firm's legal tech department before leaving for a job in healthcare IT. She was sharp, discreet, and had a well-known allergy to Amanda's brand of manipulation. I asked if she could quietly look into something for me, just a timestamp on a patient record, no diagnosis, no HIPAA risk, just data. She hesitated for maybe 10 seconds. Then she said, "Send me the name and clinic." 2 days later, she called. Her voice held that strange mix of caution and curiosity. I found something, or, really, I didn't. Amanda had one visit on file, 6 minutes. No ultrasound, no labs, no follow-up notes, just an intake form and a therapist's referral. "Nothing else," Vanessa said. "No prenatal chart, no vitals, no OB visit." It's like she walked in to ask for something and never came back. I sank back into my chair, the leather cool against my skin. The marina beyond my window glinted under the afternoon sun, deceptively peaceful. "Do you have the therapist's info?" Vanessa paused. I'm texting you something. It's not official, okay? But it's a note from a shared database. You didn't get it from me. The file came through moments later. Amanda's name, a flagged session, and 2 words that stopped me cold. Fabricated trauma. There it was. Not a smoking gun. An entire arsenal. The therapist hadn't used the word pathological, but the language circled close. Compulsive storytelling, identity diffusion, strategic use of victimhood to garner social capital. There was even a note that Amanda had described persistent sibling invalidation and fertility as a competitive space. I didn't realize I was gripping my pen until it snapped. So that was the game. She wasn't just pretending to be pregnant, she was using it to win a war. One didn't even know we were fighting. I closed my laptop and sat in stillness, letting the waves outside my office mirror the swirl inside my chest. For the first time in weeks, I felt something sharper than grief. Not anger, clarity. This wasn't about David anymore, or the house, or the lies. This was about reclaiming the narrative. Because Amanda didn't want a baby. She wanted my identity, my sympathy, my place. And now I had the beginning of a trail, a crack wide enough to push through. Quietly, I picked up my phone and made one more call to Stephanie, my attorney. It was time to prepare the ground. I chose the lake house for its serenity. Glassy water, stone paths, warm light that dipped low in the trees come sunset. It was the kind of place people softened in, let their guard down, believed what you fed them. And I was ready to feed them exactly what they needed. Invitations went out under the guise of celebration. New beginnings, old friends, I wrote, the kind of vague sentiment that meant nothing and everything. Amanda was the first to RSVP. Of course she was. She'd never turned down a curated audience. David replied next, then our college friends, a couple from the development board, 2 of Amanda's wellness circle buddies who used to follow my recipes on Instagram. I kept the guest list tight, intentional, just enough to feel social, not enough to cause a scene. I wanted eyes, but not too many. When Amanda arrived, she looked like a Hallmark movie come to life. Floaty white dress, barefoot in suede sandals. The tiniest ribbon tied just above her waistline, drawing attention to, well, nothing. Her stomach, after all this time, remained as flat as the champagne we weren't drinking. She greeted people with soft hands on shoulders, whispers about the baby's spirit, and performed gratitude like she was auditioning for sainthood. David came in, quieter, pale, smaller than I remembered, somehow. We hadn't spoken since the barbecue. We didn't need to. He looked at me with that hollow kind of remorse people wear when they realize they traded substance for sparkle. Elizabeth, Amanda said sweetly, drawing me into a side hug. This is so thoughtful of you. I know this season hasn't been easy. I smiled, warm, gracious, impenetrable. Not easy, no, I said gently, but clarity rarely is. The night unfurled like silk, smooth, deliberate, quiet. We served oysters and duck confit. I complimented Amanda's dress. She made a speech thanking chosen family and dropped subtle hints about birthing in truth. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. I opened a bottle of Merlot from our honeymoon cellar, poured it gracefully around the table, saving Amanda for last. Oh, none for me, she said quickly, resting a hand on her belly. I'm past the critical trimester now. Almost to nesting. A beat. Just a beat. I tilted my head. Oh? I thought you said you were due in late summer? I am, she replied too quickly. Then laughed, light and false. It's all happening so fast. I'm even registered for a home birth now. That did it. I saw the flicker, just one, in Nicole's eyes, and a twitch in Brian's brow, like a calculation had just misfired. Amanda didn't notice. She was too busy cradling air and soaking in the ambiance she thought she controlled. But I saw it. the moment doubt entered the room. And once doubt enters, it never leaves empty-handed. After dessert, I stepped out onto the dock, letting the night wrap around me in cool silence. I didn't need to chase her, or correct her, or fight her. I'd planted the seed. Now all I had to do was wait for it to bloom. By morning, the air had shifted, not dramatically, just a little cooler, like something had passed through in the night and hadn't quite left. I let the feeling linger, sipping coffee on the porch while the lake caught the rising sun in long streaks of gold. Amanda had left just before midnight, lingering too long at the door, still wearing that beatific smile. But the way she clutched her purse a little tighter, how her voice fluttered when she thanked me again, told me she felt it too. The wobble, the slip, the eyes that weren't quite convinced anymore. Nicole had stayed after the others left. We didn't speak for a long time. Just sat on the dock, our feet dangling over the edge like we were girls again. She didn't ask. I didn't explain. But when she finally looked over at me, it wasn't confusion in her eyes. It was permission. "Something's not right," she said softly. "I mean, you know that already, don't you?" I just nodded. And that's when I told her about the single 6-minute clinic visit, about the lack of prenatal records, about the post Amanda had deleted, where her due date contradicted the last 3 she'd mentioned. I didn't show her everything, just enough to open the door. Nicole didn't gasp. She didn't press her hand to her chest and cry out like a soap opera matriarch. She just listened, the way nurses do when someone's finally ready to tell the truth. She leaned back and exhaled. "I always thought Amanda was a little too theatrical, but this is..." She shook her head. "It's something else." I didn't say the word. Neither did she. But it hung between us anyway. Delusional. There's a particular ache in realizing your sister might not just be cruel, but unwell. It's a different kind of betrayal. Softer, but stickier, like honey left too long in the sun. You don't know whether to clean it up or just let it harden. But Nicole didn't flinch. I can talk to someone, quietly. There are ways to confirm more than what you already have. She paused. "You've been so composed." I gave her a thin smile. Composure is just containment. And that only works until something cracks. She squeezed my hand. "I've got you." The next day, I saw the aftershocks start to ripple. Brian texted me a vague message. "You doing okay?" Weird vibe at the dinner. My Aunt Rochelle posted a throwback photo of my last charity brunch with a caption suspiciously neutral. "Still one of the most elegant events I've attended. Real class never shouts." Amanda, though, she went louder. Posted a carousel of photos from the dinner, calling it a sacred circle of support. Hashtags like #homebirthready and #sisterhealing plastered beneath images where she stood just out of frame from me, smiling, radiant, untouched. I saved everyone, let her build her castle of lies. Because I had just handed Nicole the blueprints. The lake was still again. It always is after people leave. Like it knows how to hold a secret. Nicole and I stayed up long after the last car had driven away. She curled into the oversized deck chair with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and I brought out 2 mugs of tea we never drank. There was something sacred about the quiet, the kind of stillness that only follows the sound of too many lies settling into silence. She watched me for a long moment before she spoke. "Are you sure you're ready to do this?" I looked up at the stars. "I don't think it matters if I'm ready. It's already happening." Nicole nodded slowly, like she knew the cost of action was no longer higher than the cost of silence. So I showed her everything. The printouts, the screenshots, the saved files from Amanda's social media history. I let her read the line from the therapy notes, fabricated trauma cycles. I didn't embellish. I didn't push. I just let the truth sit between us. When she looked up from the last page, her mouth was pressed into a line. "This isn't just lying," she murmured. "This is pathology. I know. And if she's not pregnant, then what's the endgame?" I shook my head. "I don't think she had one. I think she just wanted to be believed. Wanted to be the center. Like always." Nicole's voice softened, hesitant. And David? I exhaled. He didn't plan this. But he let it happen. That makes him just as responsible. She nodded. What do you want me to do? I hesitated, because this wasn't just about loyalty now, it was about consequences. Real ones. I need to verify everything. Quietly. I want Amanda's actual file, the full record. Not just the timestamps or absence of notes. I want confirmation. And I need it through the right channels. Nicole's eyes didn't waver. You want it legal. I want it undeniable. She sat back and pulled the blanket tighter. I can call in a favor. One of my friends from residency works at the clinic Amanda mentioned. He owes me. If the file exists, he'll find it. Thank you. She stood after a moment and pulled me into a hug, the kind that's more about armor than affection. I didn't realize how much I needed it until she didn't let go right away. I always thought she resented you, she whispered near my ear, but I didn't know it had gotten this twisted. I don't think she ever wanted my life, I murmured. I think she wanted to prove she could take it. Nicole pulled back just enough to look at me. She didn't, she said, voice firm. She just borrowed it for a while. And for the first time since that wretched barbecue, I felt the ground under me settle. Amanda had stolen the narrative. Rewritten the story. But now? Now I had a witness, a co-author, someone who saw through the pageantry and said, no more. The stars hung low that night, like even they were eavesdropping. Let them. The truth was starting to rise. It arrived in an unmarked envelope, thick, off-white, with my attorney's name, Stephanie Weaver, typed neatly in the corner. No frills, no drama, just substance. I held it in my hands a moment too long before opening it. I already knew what it contained. Nicole had called me 2 nights before, voice tight with purpose. It's confirmed, she said. The file exists, and it's exactly what we suspected. Still, when I saw the hard copy, actual documentation, it did something to me, like seeing the crime scene after dreaming it for months. Stephanie laid it out in her office that afternoon, piece by clinical piece. Amanda's medical history, 1 visit to the women's clinic, no prenatal labs, no ultrasound, no midwife referral, no prescriptions, no fetal heartbeat notations, nothing resembling care for a pregnancy that had supposedly reached the final trimester. But that wasn't the part that chilled me. Tucked in the back was a memo from a private behavioral health provider, a single page. A therapist's note. Client demonstrates pattern of delusional tendencies centered on identity shifting and victim role appropriation. Reports of emotional invalidation by older sibling, consistent across sessions. Displays awareness of deception but expresses limited remorse. Recommends ongoing evaluation for sociopathic traits. Stephanie read the sentence aloud in her even, legal tone. Then she looked up at me. I can issue a preliminary motion for protective action if you want. Press for a cease and desist. We could argue for reputational damage. I didn't answer right away. I was still staring at that word. Sociopathic. You don't want it to be true. You want there to be some simpler explanation. Childhood wounds, insecurity, a terrible misunderstanding. But that one word cut through it all. She hadn't just stolen my story. She'd rehearsed it. With mirrors. Stephanie leaned forward. We can handle this quietly. The file is sealed on our end, unless you choose to go public. I met her eyes. I don't want to humiliate her. Her brow lifted slightly. You don't? No, I said. I want to remove her power. That's different. Stephanie gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Half respect, half wariness. I'll draft the first proposal, she said. A separation agreement for David. Full asset return. NDA for Amanda. We'll set terms that give them no room to maneuver. And the lake house? That goes to you. She's still living there? Yes, I said, but not for long. I walked out of Stephanie's office lighter than I'd felt in months. Not triumphant. Not even satisfied. Just unburdened. It's a strange thing. Learning the storm that's wrecked your life isn't a force of nature, but a person. One who looked you in the eye and smiled while twisting the knife. But now, I wasn't the one bleeding. I was the one holding the file. She came to me quietly, the way guilt does when it knows it's lost its audience. I was at the office, my office, light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the bay calm in the distance. The space smelled like eucalyptus and fresh espresso, all clean lines and clear decisions. I was reviewing floor plans when my assistant buzzed in. "She's here," she said softly. "Amanda." She didn't have an appointment. I didn't even flinch. "Let her in?" When Amanda walked in, she looked smaller. Not physically. No, she was still dressed like an earth goddess in some flowing linen thing, but diminished. The gloss was there, but the sheen had thinned. Her voice trembled with manufactured humility. "I wanted to see you." I didn't stand. I didn't smile. I waited. She didn't sit, just hovered near the edge of the desk. "I lost it," she said finally. "The baby. I miscarried. That's why I haven't posted. That's why I didn't say anything." Her eyes glossed over, though the tears never fell. It was too painful to share. There it was, the new angle, the final rewrite. I let the silence stretch, long and unflinching. "Elizabeth," she said, a little breathless, "please don't tell anyone. It's private. I know I've made things hard. But I never meant to hurt you." I closed the file I was reviewing and folded my hands. "No, Amanda, you meant to erase me." Her eyes flashed, just briefly. The facade slipped, like a curtain caught in wind. She caught herself, forced a breathy laugh. I just got carried away. Everything felt so real. And David, I don't care about David, I said flatly. "This isn't about him." She blinked. "I have a proposal," I continued. "A formal one. It's with my attorney now. David's been served. The vacation home, where you're currently living, will be returned to me within 10 days. David will forfeit all spousal claims. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding the events of the past 6 months." She opened her mouth. "You will not speak publicly about me, our family, or the pregnancy that never existed. You will disappear from my life. Quietly. Permanently." Her face changed then. I watched it happen. The softness dissolved, the faux sorrow tightening into something closer to fury. The kind of expression a child makes when their game is taken away. "You can't control me," she said under her breath. "No," I said calmly. "But I can end this story, and make sure no one ever reads the version you wrote." She stared at me, hate and panic warring just beneath the surface. Then she nodded, quick and sharp. "I want the paperwork. You'll have it by morning." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "You always thought you were better than me," she hissed. I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. I had the truth now, in print, on record, in memory. And Amanda? She had a story no one was buying anymore. David looked like a ghost when he stepped into my office. Not the tragic, cinematic kind, just the real, dull version of someone worn down by consequences he thought he could outrun. He'd lost weight. His shirt clung to his frame like it wasn't sure it belonged there. His hands fidgeted with the strap of a messenger bag he hadn't carried in years. "Elizabeth," he said softly, like my name might bite back. I didn't offer a hug, or coffee, or the decency of small talk. I pointed to the seat across from me. He sat. The file was already on the desk between us, neatly clipped. No room for confusion. No space for hope. "I've reviewed the separation terms," he said, voice low. "They're clear." I waited. "She lied to me too," he added, and for the first time I saw something close to honesty in his eyes. "I thought I believed her. About the baby. About you." I let him sit in that. "I don't want anything from you," he continued. "Not the business, not the house. I'll sign over the vacation property. I just want it done." I nodded, passing him a pen. He signed. No fight, no pause. "She started unraveling," he said quietly, after the last initial hit the page. "Said the baby was kicking one day, then wouldn't talk about it the next. She screamed at me when I asked about an ultrasound, said I didn't trust her, and maybe I didn't. Not really. He looked up at me then, something raw behind his tired eyes. I lost everything, didn't I? I closed the file. You lost me. That's not the same as everything. But it's more than you realized. He nodded, defeated. And just like that, it was over. No court battle, no tabloids, no family showdown. Just 2 signatures, and the quiet crumble of what had once been a marriage. A week later, I sat across from a podcast host in a studio lined with soft lighting and velvet soundproof walls. The microphone in front of me glowed red. The host leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Elizabeth," she said, "you've been through something many women fear. Emotional betrayal not just from a partner, but from someone within the family. Can you talk about that?" I took a breath. Slow, grounded. "Yes," I said, "I can." And I told my story. Not the scandal, not the gossip, but the truth. I spoke about gaslighting, the kind that comes not with shouting, but with doubt. The way your own family can erase your version of events because it makes for a less palatable dinner. The loneliness of being labeled cold for not crying loudly enough. The strength it takes to step back instead of explode. And how sometimes reclaiming your life doesn't look like revenge. It looks like quiet decisions, lined up like stones across water. She asked me what I learned. I said, that composure isn't weakness. That watching isn't the same as doing nothing. That truth doesn't beg to be believed. It just waits. Amanda never responded publicly. Her social media went dark. The wellness groups scrubbed her from their roster. She didn't show up to the holiday brunch or my father's birthday. In every photo that followed, there was a space where she used to stand. I never filled it. David moved out of the city, last I heard. Someone said he was working for a nonprofit, quiet, unassuming, trying maybe to live a life that didn't cost him everything again. As for me, I kept the lake house. The real estate firm is thriving. My name's on a new development now, Elizabeth Point, just outside Annapolis. Elegant, grounded, subtle, like the woman I've become. And sometimes, I walk past the charity brunch photos in my office, ones from the early years, when it was all laughter and fresh roses. I don't flinch anymore. I smile, because now, the story is mine again. All of it.